Bruno Mars has lived a life that most people could never imagine. From the outside, it looked like nothing but success. Sold-out tours, Grammy sweeps, and songs that ruled the radio for years. But behind the hits was a man carrying secrets he never wanted to speak about. Rumors that followed him from smoky casinos in Las Vegas to the darkest nights of his childhood in Hawaii. At 39 years old, Bruno has chosen to reveal what really happened, not in gossip headlines or second-hand stories, but in his own words. And what he confirmed left fans shocked, because the truth was far more painful than the myth. A childhood built on stages and secrets. Peter Gene Hernandez, born October 8, 1985 in Honolulu, Hawaii, was never given the chance to be ordinary. His father, Peter Hernandez, was a percussionist from Brooklyn with Puerto Rican and Ashkenazi Jewish roots. His mother, Bernadette Bayo, was a singer and dancer from the Philippines with Spanish ancestry. Together, they raised 6 children in the Waikiki neighborhood, but it was Bruno who stood out almost immediately. By the age of 2, his father had nicknamed him Bruno, comparing him to wrestler Bruno Sammartino. By 4, he was already performing with the family's band, the Love Notes, 5 nights a week at the Sheraton Waikiki. His family billed him as Little Elvis. Dressed in a tiny glitter jumpsuit, he stole the spotlight with uncanny impersonations of Presley's moves. In 1990, at just 5 years old, he performed at the Aloha Bowl halftime show before 40,000 people. The following year, he appeared on the Arsenio Hall show, and in 1992, he played a young Elvis in Honeymoon in Vegas. By the time most children were learning to read, Bruno had already performed close to 1,000 shows. That kind of start shaped him in ways that were both inspiring and damaging. When Bruno was 12, the bright lights went dark. His parents divorced, the family act dissolved, and the money vanished. He, his father, and brother began sleeping wherever they could, inside a '93 Cadillac on rooftops, and even in an abandoned bird zoo called Paradise Park, where peacocks shrieked through the night. They snuck into hotel pools just to bathe, and dinner was often nothing more than a Spam musubi from 7-Eleven. For 5 months, they lived without electricity, and Bruno practiced guitar by moonlight because they couldn't afford amps. These were not just hard times. They were humiliating, the kind of struggles he carried like scars long after fame arrived. It was here that the first seeds of escape were planted. Bruno learned that music could hide hunger, that applause could drown out shame, and that the stage was the only place where poverty couldn't touch him. The Los Angeles Gamble. In June 2003, at just 18, Bruno left Hawaii with nothing more than 3 demo CDs, a suitcase, and about $600. He stepped off the plane in Los Angeles and into a city that didn't care who he was or how many shows he had done as a child. The poverty shocked him. He found himself moving through 4 different places to live in his first year, sometimes a $40 a night motel on Sunset Boulevard, sometimes a cramped Koreatown studio crammed with 6 other guys. To survive, he lied his way into a DJ job on Van Nuys Boulevard. He had never touched the equipment before, but the promise of $75 in cash was too good to ignore. Within 2 nights, he was fired, but the small payment was enough to keep his phone from being shut off. There were stretches when he lived on nothing but 99-cent tacos from Jack in the Box. The dream that had once seemed inevitable in Hawaii now felt like it was slipping away in Los Angeles. A small deal with Motown Records in 2004 briefly looked like a breakthrough, but the contract went nowhere. The label didn't know what to do with him. Executives wanted him to sing in Spanish, to become the next Ricky Martin, even though he didn't write in Spanish. By the end of that year, he was dropped without releasing a single song. For Bruno, it was humiliating. He had already told his family back home that he was signed. But out of failure came the beginnings of a partnership that would change everything. Another artist dropped by Motown around the same time was songwriter Philip Lawrence. The two became fast friends, bound by hunger and rejection. They began writing songs together, studying hundreds of hits and scribbling ideas in the back of Philip's battered 1999 Toyota Corolla. Along with producer Ari Levine, they formed the Smeezingtons, a team determined to create music so undeniable that no record label could ever ignore them again. It was a long gamble, built on burritos from 7-Eleven and 10-hour sessions in borrowed studios, but it was the first real hand Bruno ever played in Los Angeles. He had no idea how high the stakes would become, writing hits for others, waiting for his own. By 2006, Bruno Mars and Philip Lawrence were broke but relentless. They wrote wherever they could, often in the back of Philip's Toyota Corolla, parked outside Ari Levine's tiny Hollywood studio. Levine had the gear, Bruno and Philip had the ideas, and together they built songs one hook at a time. They studied more than 1,000 hit records, breaking them apart to understand what worked. Whenever a chord progression or lyric clicked, they shouted, "That's a S-me!" The name stuck. The Smeezingtons. The trio hustled for years with little reward. Bruno even sold a song called Lost to Menudo for $20,000 just to keep a roof over their heads. But the real breakthrough came when they wrote the chorus for Flo Rida's Right Round in 2009. The song shot to #1 and broke digital sales records, moving over 600,000 downloads in a week. For the first time, Bruno could see the edge of the mountain he had been climbing. Soon after, the Smeezingtons penned B.O.B.'s Nothin' on You and Travie McCoy's Billionaire. Both were massive hits, and Bruno's voice on the hooks turned heads across the industry. Suddenly, the kid who had been rejected for being too hard to categorize was the voice labels couldn't get enough of. But the memories of his earlier humiliation lingered. He admitted later that a major executive had rejected Nothin' on You purely because of his race, telling him he didn't know whether black or white audiences would buy into him. It made Bruno feel like a mutant, like he didn't belong in any room. Still, by the time he released his own debut single, Just the Way You Are, in 2010, the groundwork was already laid. His EP, It's Better If You Don't Understand, had gone largely unnoticed, selling only 27,000 copies in the U.S., but it contained pieces of what was to come. Then came his debut album, Doo-Wops and Hooligans, released in October 2010. With a budget of just $70,000 and no borrowed samples, the album exploded. Just the Way You Are raced to #1 in 8 weeks, selling over 6 million downloads in the U.S. alone. Grenade followed, topping charts in 15 countries. The Grammys took notice, showering him with 7 nominations. He won Best Male Pop Vocal, becoming the youngest man to win that award since Stevie Wonder in 1974. At 25, Bruno was finally on the map, but the weight of his past struggles never really left, breaking the rules and owning the charts. By late 2012, Bruno Mars had no intention of playing it safe. His label expected a polished, radio-friendly dance album for his second release. Instead, he and his team quietly expanded the vision, dabbling in reggae, disco, rock, and funk. He even sacrificed 4% of his future royalties just to afford live horns and vintage gear. The result was Unorthodox Jukebox, an album that critics initially feared was too chaotic for mainstream radio. But Bruno insisted on pushing forward, saying he wasn't going to let executives dictate his sound. The gamble worked. Released in December 2012, the album delivered hits like Locked Out of Heaven, which climbed to #1 within 11 weeks and stayed there for 6 straight. It became his 4th chart topper in just 2 years, making him the first solo male artist since Bobby Vinton in 1964 to achieve that milestone so quickly. Tracks like Treasure and Gorilla further showcased his refusal to be boxed into one genre. By the time the 2014 Grammys arrived, Unorthodox Jukebox had sold 6 million copies worldwide and won Best Pop Vocal Album. Then came the collaboration that changed everything. In November 2014, Mark Ronson released Uptown Funk with Bruno on vocals. The song dominated charts around the globe, spending 14 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. At its peak, it sold 300,000 downloads per week and logged 15 million daily streams worldwide. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon. Airlines played it during boarding, the BBC used its tempo for CPR training, and lawsuits over its similarity to earlier funk tracks dragged Bruno into years of legal disputes. Yet, none of that could stop its momentum. Uptown Funk cemented Bruno as a global superstar. But success came with its own shadows. Whispers about his personal life, accusations of cultural appropriation, and his 2010 cocaine arrest resurfaced in headlines. Bruno turned most of it into jokes, but behind the smile was someone who knew how fragile his place at the top could be. He had climbed from sleeping in cars to headlining stadiums, yet the pressure to stay there was relentless. And with his third album, he would find both his greatest triumph and the beginning of the rumors that would haunt him, the magic, the highs, and the shadows. In 2016, Bruno Mars delivered what looked like the most confident statement of his career. 24. K-Magic was only 9 tracks long, barely 33 minutes, but Bruno insisted it was meant to feel like a flawless 1990s mixtape. No filler, no skips. The gamble paid off. At the 2018 Grammys, the album swept the major categories: Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year for That's What I Like. It was the kind of clean sweep that only the biggest names in music ever achieve. By then, 24K Magic had sold over 5 million copies worldwide, and Bruno's tour, 215 shows across 6 continents, earned nearly $368 million, ranking among the top 10 highest-grossing tours of all time. Every detail was carefully crafted. The title track's talkbox mirrored Zapp's Computer Love. Versace on the Floor carried echoes of Babyface's smooth ballads. Even the Finesse remix with Cardi B was mixed through a 25-year-old console to capture an authentic early 90s sound. Critics praised the project as a history lesson in funk and R&B disguised as a pop album. Fans paid up to $6,500 for single tickets on the tour, proof that Bruno wasn't just selling songs, he was selling nostalgia polished into perfection. But just as his dominance seemed untouchable, the first real cracks began to appear. In March 2024, a segment on News Nation claimed Bruno owed $50 million to MGM Resorts after years of gambling losses. The story spread like wildfire. Blogs, talk shows, and Reddit threads painted him as a man owned by Las Vegas casinos, working off his debt through his long residency at Park MGM. Rumors even claimed he once lost $17 million in a single night at a blackjack table. MGM denied everything, issuing a statement that Bruno had no debt and that their relationship was built on mutual respect. Yet the image of a superstar secretly drowning in casino losses was too tempting for the public to ignore. Bruno leaned into the whispers with humor, telling crowds in Vegas, "Ever since they said I'm on the hook for $50 million, my phone's been dry." The joke went viral, but the speculation lingered. For many, the laughter only confirmed that there was something darker beneath the surface. The rumors, the confession, and the cost. Even as whispers about gambling debts refused to fade, Bruno Mars kept releasing music that seemed untouchable. In 2021, he and Anderson .Paak unveiled Silk Sonic with the single Leave the Door Open. It shot to #1 within weeks, won Record and Song of the Year at the Grammys, and revived the sound of 1970s soul for a new generation. Their album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, was recorded entirely on analog equipment, selling over 100,000 vinyl copies in its first week, the biggest R&B vinyl debut in 3 decades. Their 2022 tour earned nearly $145 million from just 37 shows, making almost $4 million a night. Bruno looked unstoppable. Then came the collaborations that reminded the world of his versatility. In August 2024, he and Lady Gaga released Die with a Smile. The ballad broke streaming records, topping charts for 18 straight weeks. At the 2025 Grammys, their performance brought the crowd to tears. Later that year, a duet with Blackpink's Rosé shattered K-pop records, debuting at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reigniting Bruno's global dominance. Fans screamed louder than jet engines when he joined her on stage at SoFi Stadium, and their track soared back up the charts almost a year after release. But in the middle of these triumphs, Bruno's personal life was quietly unraveling. His 13-year relationship with model Jessica Caban appeared to collapse in late 2024. Anniversary posts disappeared, and she spent Christmas in Puerto Rico while he played Vegas on New Year's Eve. By January 2025, she hinted online that she was cheering from afar. For fans, it was confirmation of heartbreak he never addressed directly. That same year, at 39, Bruno finally spoke about the storm of rumors surrounding him. In shows and in interviews, he admitted that gambling had once consumed him, that he had lost everything more than once, and that it nearly cost him not only his career, but the people closest to him. The $50 million figure may have been exaggerated, but the addiction was real. It was the secret he carried for decades, the shadow behind the sparkle of his gold tuxedos. And by confirming it, Bruno Mars revealed himself not just as an entertainer, but as a man who had battled demons in plain sight. Bruno Mars has given the world unforgettable songs, record-breaking tours, and a stage presence few can match. But behind the lights, he finally admitted what many had only whispered: the battles with addiction, loss, and the pressure to keep performing night after night. Now that the rumors are no longer rumors, the question is, how do you see him? As a fallen star who risked everything, or as a survivor who turned his pain into music? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.